Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream panel discussion on this, Friday, November 14th, 2025. I'm David Menzies, and let's get right to my co-host, and then I'll introduce you to our two extra special guests, at least for the first half hour. But my co-host, as I mentioned, is Drea Humphrey from beautiful BC. Well, parts of BC are beautiful. Certainly not a beautiful sight at the Ostrich farm. And yes, we will be talking about that right off the hop. How you doing there, Drea?
Well, I'm doing all right. I've missed you, David. We haven't had our little Friday rendezvous like this, so I'm
Well,
happy.
well, Drea, you have been extremely busy producing what I think has been excellent journalism covering the atrocity that has happened at the Universal Ostrich Farm. And, I'm sure our audience can't wait to hear the latest on that front. Now, also, by the way, maybe we should have you tell our viewers, if they want to get involved with a super chat, how they do so.
Sure. One of the things I love so much about the Rebel Roundup, especially on Fridays, is that we have a panel and we have two great guests for you. But more importantly, you guys can be a part of the show too. So we love hearing from you, your input, and sometimes you guys help us break the news because this is all live. This is, of course, unscripted. So you can be a part of the show and actually contribute to keeping the lights on at Rebel News by doing a super chat on YouTube. Or if you're watching this even after and you just want to donate and put a comment out, you can do a super thanks. I love Rumble. We know their free speech stance. So if you are watching us on Rumble, you can do the same thing. It's just called a Rumble rant. Much appreciated. And we read it and it becomes a part of the show today.
Drea. So without further ado, why don't we get to our guests? Why don't we start with independent journalist David Krayden? How you doing, my friend?
Nice to be here, Dave. We go back a few years, and nice to join you today.
Yes, I'm thinking of that Peaches and Herb song, Reunited, and it feels so good, but I dare not sing it. And also we have Mario Zelaya. He is a political commentator and an entrepreneur. That means that unlike us journalists, folks, he actually makes money. He is also known as Mario of the North. How you doing there, Mario?
Good. Thank you for having me on, David. I appreciate it.
It is a pleasure. Always love your content. Well, you know what, folks? Why don't we get right into the Ostrich Farm? Maybe we can play a couple of videos. One from Daisy Media, and of course, one from Drea Humphrey, who has probably been on the ground at that Ostrich Farm for longer than any other journalist, either independent or mainstream. So we'll throw to Daisy Media now, looking at these empty pens, which she says are going to change the world. Let's check it out.
Man, it's not easy, eh?
They're gonna change the world. The
You
world is watching. They're gonna change the world. These birds are gonna change the world for the better. Yeah.
They have.
They have this trauma and this pain. This is there's no coming back from this. So there's no coming back. There's no coming back from this. But they're gonna change the world. They're gonna change the world. These empty pens, they're gonna change the world. I have full faith in that. We have faith in that. going to change the world. They're going to change the world.
You too. You
don't cause pain like this and then it goes unnoticed. The world is watching and the world's going to continue to watch. This is going to change the world. The world's going to help.
Wow. Mario, let's start with you. Aside from the human heartache, everything that we have revealed, and when I say we, I'm talking primarily of Drea and other independent journalists, that this mass slaughter of hundreds of ostriches, this was a solution to a problem that did not exist, that they were not infected. In fact, that important research was being done. Mario, what was the unspoken reason for the CFIA to send in their assassins under cover of night and slaughter these beautiful birds?
Well, I got to be honest with you. The amount of detail and information related to the ostrich farm is something I'm not particularly privy to. Like, I don't have obviously all the insights that you guys have, but just looking at it from an outsider, and I'm going to put my hat on as, let's say, a quasi-average Canadian that is just looking into this. And I think an average Canadian will view it from a lens of, okay, so these birds were sick almost a year ago. Like, why was there no testing done? Why did all these birds have to be slaughtered? Like, they were, sick a year ago. They're fine today. What's the point? Like, the amount of government waste, resources, RCMP, like the detail, like to bring out, snipers, marksmen to, to take these birds out. It almost seems like it's something that is vindictive of the government. And maybe they just didn't like the pushback of, these folks saying, you know what, like, RFK wants them. Like, the US is interested in them. Like, we could save this. Like, and that's what I think the audience needs to know, is that why not just extend, an olive branch to the US and say, hey, let's restart these discussions. Like, use it it may not be big, but at least restart the conversations on trade and restart the conversations in having these negotiations and say, hey, we know you want, the ostriches. According to Canada law, whatever that law is, we won't allow it. We will kill them, but please take them. And you're going to pay for the transportation. They offered all of that. And so the fact that we didn't take them up on that, and instead the optimal solution in the government's eyes was to simply kill birds for being sick a year ago, I think sets a horrible, horrible precedent going forward. And I think, I don't know if it's, to me, it can't be laziness. It can't be stupidity. This to me is something that I think is a bit more vindictive in nature. And it just smells really bad. And I think, and I'll say again, like, as an average Canadian looking on from the outside, it's very, very odd. It's very concerning. And I think it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows to Canadians. And it doesn't matter, where you fall on the political spectrum, that this isn't normal.
Mario, I think you made an excellent assessment. And David, that is the point, isn't it? There was a plan B that did not involve slaughter. This story has received international attention. RFK Jr. reached out. He said, we're happy to take the birds. And I know Ezra, about 2 weeks ago, asked a federal Liberal cabinet minister, in the interest of extending an olive branch to the Trump administration, why don't we take them up on that offer? Why not save the birds and also do a solid for the Trump administration in terms of getting negotiations going again on the ongoing tariff tiff? Ezra did not even receive a response. I mean, nothing. It was, thanks for your question, next. David, what's your assessment of what's going on?
I started covering the story in April when I had Katie on my broadcast for the first time. And I covered the story extensively as anybody, but including Rebel News, which has done a tremendous job. Accolades to Drea for being there. and Sheila Gunn Reid at times. Accolades to Viva Fry for covering this story. I got this story on some U.S. stations like Redacted, where I do a stint every week to talk about Canadian news. I wrote about this story for the 3 U.S. media outlets that I work for. And I'll tell you, this is all about, it's always been about subservience to big pharma. Because if you recall, on January 2nd, 2025, Universal Ostrich Farms received an exemption from the CFIA because of the unique genetic composition of their ostriches. 8 days later, the CFIA lifted that exemption without any reason or rationale. 2 weeks later, the federal government announced it was buying 500,000 H5N1 avian flu vaccines from GSK in the UK. So is there a connection there? Of course. This government does not want ostriches or humans to attain herd immunity. That is anathema to this government. They want us to take the vaccine every time. These birds developed natural immunity, and it was quite clear to anybody who had any peripheral contact with this story, who ever talked to Katie at least on one occasion. These were ostriches that were healthy, thriving, and happy. And there was absolutely no reason for this massacre of literally a week ago when this farm, when Katie and her mom woke up to see a wasteland where there was once a thriving flock of ostriches. This is one of the worst Canadian tragedies in the last 10 years. And nobody seems to get it in the mainstream media. Nobody seems to get that this is about outright appropriation, expropriation of private property, invasion of a homeland, occupation of a farm, complete denial of property rights and livelihood rights. The government wanted to destroy this family from the top to the bottom. They've tried very hard to do that, but thank God this is a family with a lot of guts, moxie, and courage. And I'm encouraging Katie to do what we discussed yesterday. And we talk every day on the phone. And she told me about her objectives to start an association to fight the CFIA's continued interference in the lives of farmers and her basic desire to help farmers. And this association is going to be called Voice for Farmers. And I'm going to do whatever I have to help her get that off the ground because I think it's a worthy project.
Drea, to David's point, first of all, this is another appalling example of our Constitution that it doesn't recognize private property rights, and animals are considered private property, not living beings by the law. But to David's other point, if the ostensible policy reason had nothing to do with health and safety, but had everything to do about pushing future vaccines for big pharma, this is a scandal. What say you?
Well, it's a scandal beyond what I think we even know. Even the people who have been covering it for so long, like David and myself, I think we're scratching the surface of something much bigger. And I think to a certain extent, both David and Mario are hitting on the key issues. You have policy. So you have, for the first time, farmers publicly standing up against the stamping out policy, which is derived, but in this case superseded, but derived from the World Organization for Animal Health. So you have these fearless farmers who are in some ways doing everything right. Again, these are farmers. Katie became the perfect spokesperson. She was so articulate. She just blossomed in that role. The kitchen became this whole operation site where you had people working around the clock. The eyes that they had, exposing, for example, the neglect of the hen spirit. They actually captured footage after the CFIA tried to block out Canadians. I mean, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency was like, we cannot let this farm win. If we do, all of the other hundreds of farms in BC alone that we've wiped out in the name of avian flu could say, why didn't you do that for us? And the future, it would be harder. Now, it should be noted that CFIA has done exemptions where they actually saw it out and they actually didn't go ahead and cull that herd. If any farm was worthy of an exemption, it was and still is the Universal Ostrich Farm, not just because of the science, although that is hugely important, especially if you say you're killing and destroying these livelihoods because of the avian flu. Why would you kill birds? That could be the answer to properly addressing that. But also because of the, I forgot what I was going to say. I was on a roll there.
That's okay. I'll give you a question on another point that David made, which was the mainstream media not getting it. I might challenge David on that. I think they do get it, and they get it in this regard. If you look at this sunset industry that is mainstream media, one of the big industries that has deep pockets to advertise is big pharma. And maybe there was selective looking away because, you know what, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to lose that advertiser. I mean, our viewers can go online, go to YouTube and Google the phrase "brought to you by Pfizer." It's like a 7-minute loop of that phrase on every single major U.S. news program and major entertainment program. Do you think that was why, Drea? I mean, I don't have proof, of course. Do you think maybe that might have been a reason why we're not interested, or they were actually cheering on CFIA?
I'm going to get to that, right? I remembered what I was going to say.
The
other reason, and of course, you know, chicken farmers, it's an important fight for them too, but these are not chickens. These are not poultry. These are animals that can live for 60 years. And some of these animals came from Africa. I mean, like David was pointing out, the value that they had in the science that is not exactly where Big Pharma wants to take us is the fact that they have such robust antibodies, not just for COVID-19, also from Pseudomonas bacterial infection, and now it would have been avian flu. So to answer your question about the mainstream media, you know, at first when I was covering this, you know, towards the beginning of the year, there were mainstream media reports that would come out. And of course, over the years, over the months, they kept doing more and more. And I was actually surprised. At first, they were being pretty reasonable, and the farmers would agree. Overall, there would be the odd report that would come out. Then it drastically changed after the farm got that miraculous stay order last second. And let's remind everybody that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency knew that the farm was going to pursue their fight in Supreme Court. They were notified, and they tried to beat the farm by descending on the farm as fast as they could, having the RCMP show up. Thankfully, I had whistleblowers help me out to expose that plan before it even happened so the farm could be set up. And companies started backing out because of the farmers and their supporters pointing it out. But if that had not happened, they wanted to kill the birds before the farm could get that stay order. So when they got that miraculous stay order, oh boy, did the mainstream media change their tune. I saw journalists on the ground crying when they got that stay order and completely, you know, going against the farm, talking about the debts that they owe as if like, hey, if the birds die, they can pay their debts. Like, what's going on here? And they always interview a Dr. Angela Rasmussen, who is a heavily funded, government-funded scientist, of course, who's working in vaccines. She is a big pharma scientist who, on paper, if you look at her research, should be saying, please don't kill these birds. We need them. We need them to fight avian flu. She's doing not only the exact opposite, but she's always trying to turn it into a far-right issue, which most of the mainstream media has not. When they interview her, she talks about the far-right ecosystem. She's even named Rebel News as being a bigger part of the problem, a bigger problem than the scientific issues in this matter. So that's when you go, yeah, I think Big Pharma has a little something to do it, and the mainstream media may be on the tape.
You know, that is absolutely fascinating, and it reminds me, going back to 2020, when I can't remember her name, but she was a Harvard scientist who said, yeah, you know, we should be masking up and not and embracing social distancing, but if you're going to a social justice protest, it's okay, the rules don't apply. A Harvard scientist, so it's unbelievable. Drea, why don't we get a snippet of your most recent report at Universal Ostrich Farms, and then we'll go
it. I think you could skip it because it's basically the
Oh,
same
okay.
thing he put up. So we saw that.
Okay, then.
Just
Well,
wanted
why
to
don't we
say,
jump to animal justice? They're saying that shooting ostriches at night in view of their terrified flock mates violates the CFIA's own guidelines and may be criminal animal cruelty. We are demanding, we being animal justice, an investigation into those involved in directing and carrying out this massacre. Mario, we'll start with you. Is this going to go anywhere, or is it going to be the CFIA and their ministerial masters saying your concerns are noted, move along? What's going to happen, my friend?
I think they're going to continue down the same path as what they've done before, and this is typical government. I mean, they're going to make it as expensive and long as humanly possible. They're going to basically drag this as long as they possibly can. They're going to throw a bunch of different delays, books. I mean, it's just anything litigation against the government, they're going to make it extremely expensive, brutal, and they're going to find some sort of a loophole around it. Like I mean, look what happened with the trucker convoy protests. I mean, they lost, and they're appealing the decision. They have no respect for the rule of law. The only thing that they respect is winning, and that's their focus. Is they want to basically send a message. And I think Drea kind of hit the nail on the head, where she basically said, like, this is, if they allow them to win this time, is going to create other problems for them in the future. And so they're going to basically stomp them to the ground, and they're going to make an example of them. And I think that's what this was. I think it's a very vindictive approach, and it's very on par with what we expect with the Liberal government.
You know, it reminds me, David, of the tagline from Jaws 4, an awful movie, by the way, but this time it's personal. And, you know, David, one thing I want to bring up, and I brought this up in the past, when it comes to animal husbandry in Canada, the rules seem all over the map. Right now, we have an ongoing scandal happening at Marineland. There are all these beautiful beluga whales and dolphins and seals that are in neglect at this closed amusement park in Niagara Falls. And the owner is now saying to the federal government, look, either pay me for their feed or I'm going to slaughter them. In Toronto, downtown Toronto, Liberty Village, we have a coyote problem. That's a heavily urban area. And the city's idea to address this was not to put down these apex predators, but put up signs saying, and I'm not making this up, get to know your coyote neighbor. Okay, hi neighbor. My hands are gone. David, it's all over the map. It's insane. It's almost like a Monty Python sketch. How do you square this circle in terms of how we deal with animal rights in Canada?
Well, it shocked me to begin with that there weren't more animal rights activists there.
Yes.
No, it didn't really, because we know these activists are in the pocket of the Marxist Carney government, and they really didn't want to cause much of an uproar. But I'm a little more optimistic in terms of change. I had a veterinarian on my show this morning, Dr. Chris Wilson, and we talked about the pushback that's going on right now from veterinarians and from whistleblowers within the CFIA, who are absolutely appalled and disgusted that this organization has gone so rogue, so off the rails, that it is just unconscionable. This was not just an inhumane exercise in so-called euthanasia. It was inhuman. And it was absolutely appallingly disgusting. This is what this adds up to for Canada. And there's a growing grassroots movement that I am discovering from people who are contacting me, and I'm sure they're contacting Drea as well, and they're contacting anybody else who gave a damn about this story, to say that there's pushback coming, because the stamping out policy is not only out of step with the World Organization for Animal Health, which is now suggesting quarantine, not stamping out, that there is a demand that the government of Canada wake up and realize it is not even dispensing the talking points of the World Health Organization anymore. It is on its own very dangerous path. And there is common sense out there in the medical community who are saying this must stop. because it is absolutely unacceptable.
You know, that's fascinating, David. And Drea, to David's point, I didn't know until just 5 seconds ago that this runs afoul of World Health Organization talking points. I thought that's who the scientists in Ottawa take their marching orders from. What are you hearing about this issue?
Well, that's what I was referring to when I mentioned the World Organization for Animal Health. That is from the WHO. And really, most of our troubles in Canada are rooted in these oligarch, 1% run foreign entities such as the UN, the WHO, the WEF. But David's right to say that it was superseded. They conveniently, during the case, would point to the the WHO, if you will, and say, this is coming down from this organization, everybody does it. But then when they would go over and above, they would have no explanation for that. So that's part of it. And I actually share David's optimism. I don't think a lot of people understand that these birds already have not been slaughtered in vain. Okay, that needs to be really said. And probably, David, you can tell it by your emails. I can tell it by my emails when I run into people in person. There are so many people who never heard of Rebel News, who are just really confused about why the mainstream media is reporting things like the birds were that same scientist saying that the birds were basically too tall to test, therefore must die. Like they, on a very basic level, know healthy animals should not die and you're not sick from something you caught a year ago. So this has really shook a lot of people to the core. I've gotten so messages, people saying my mom has been bawling for 3 days. They don't want to get out of bed. So this is one of those moments that I would compare to the trucker convoy, not about the physical presence, but the effect it's had. And also to just go on, I did an interview with one of the culling industry whistleblowers about this issue. They are appalled. According to this individual, they're disgusted for what they saw on the method that the CFIA took. The individual I interviewed said, it's almost like they just did it the most barbaric way possible to teach the farmers a lesson, to show the world this is what's going to happen. I mean, these animals are very fast running. They did not secure them one by one and do the humane shot to the head. They put them in an area where, of course, they're going to be running. They're easily spooked birds. They flashed the floodlights on and off, and they blasted at them. I was there. It was so many shots. I didn't sit there counting. I was trying to cover things. The people who counted claim I've heard between 600 and 900 shots for what the CFIA is seeing is 314 birds. Meaning, how are you hitting that small head while they're moving? This is the sickest thing, and people can see that. So it's woken up a lot of people, including in that industry that works closely with the CFIA to humanely kill birds. They're speaking out the best way they can.
And, Mario, to Drea's point of the way in which they were slaughtered, I know Ezra made this point that when the sun came up, there were additional gunshots heard, which can only mean one thing, that birds they thought were dead were actually suffering throughout the night. They were wounded. What do you make of the way in which these birds were put down? And does Animal Justice have a point here that the CFIA is guilty of breaking its own rules and regulations?
Again, as an outsider kind of looking in, and I obviously don't have the information that you all have on this. I mean, it was very barbaric and it was very repulsive. It never occurred to me. Honestly, I thought the snipers originally there, when I had heard about it, I thought they were there as security detail. So people, like a SWAT team, basically making sure that no one's, attacking our CMP officers. I literally thought that's what they were for. I didn't realize they were there to actually kill the birds. It just seems like something that you'd expect, from Iran or Iraq, right? It's almost like a third world country. I thought that there would be a much more humane way of doing it. I figured there's going to be some sort of an injection, and they were going to go ahead and do that. But I had no idea it was going to be this type of basically a bloody massacre.
Yeah, it's astonishing. And one last point, the last word will go to you on this file, David. Drea mentioned that the people there was very much a freedom convoy vibe. I think, I might be wrong, I think that's what scared away some of the animal rights organizations. I mean, you would think PETA would be all over this. They are completely absent. Was there, do you think, a suspicion, ooh, this is kind of like a right of center movement? We don't want to be associated with these people, when really, whether you're left of center, right of center, in the center, can't we all agree that we love animals and we don't want to harm them?
Well, as I said, I think organizations like PETA were definitely not going to get involved because they've become very woke in their politics. I personally reached out to Pam Anderson, who has done work for PETA, and Pam and I are from the same hometown in British Columbia on Vancouver Island. She was born outside of Comox, but was raised in Comox, British Columbia, where I was born and raised. And there was very little response from anybody on the animal activist side, and I think that's because of the politics. But, you know, it's crazy, though, because this was an abject case of animal cruelty. The farm and people who were there, like Chris Dacey, who I've worked with very closely here in Ottawa, I think he did a bang-up job of capturing things when nobody else was there, because obviously every media organization can't devote 24/7 coverage to this. Chris was on scene for almost 2 months, got some great video coverage, and he documented, as well as some of the Rebel News video, because I was going through this. Katie asked me, can you help us put together as many incidents of animal cruelty as possible? And I was doing that, going through the video that was shot. And it's overwhelmingly clear that the CFIA, in their hazmat costumes, which, by the way, they didn't put on for almost 72 hours after arriving. What a threat! Avian flu threat. Oh, better put our costumes on so this looks like we're getting with the talking points. But these guys were lassoing the ostriches, stabbing them with sharp objects at other times, hitting and kicking the ostriches, chasing them around, generally acting like a bunch of goons, which is what they were. And when they talked to people, credible people who understood animal health, it looked like they didn't know a damn thing about veterinary skills or animal health skills. They were just killers. That's all they seem to be good at. As Katie likes to say, the CFIA is good at two things: lying and killing. And I would echo that point. And Katie was so articulate. You know, Drea brought that up. She was so good at staying calm, even though, you know, I don't know how many times we were talking on the phone. She was crying and I started crying because this situation was just so absurdly horrible. But once again, this was an absolute failure of people in this country and around the world who pretend, at least, and say they're concerned about the welfare of animals. They were not there.
David, and that's a great point. I never even thought about Pamela Anderson, born in British Columbia, a big animal rights activist, heck, born on July 1st, 1967, our centennial day. Don't ask me how I know this. I swear I'm not stalking her. But you know what? We got to cut it. We got to cut it here.
One very quick thing,
yes.
Dave, because people need to understand that PETA does not support farmers.
Yes, that's true.
They basically believe it would be better for animals to be dead than farmed. This is not their fight. And I agree with the rest of what you're saying, you know, because of the funding and things like that. You did see, for example, the SPCA do 2 statements about it. They were very weak statements. They were still playing neutral, not really saying anything, but they at least did respond, where PETA's like, oh, you know what, as farmers, we don't support this anyway.
You know what, that's an excellent point, Dre, and I can tell you, because I've spoken to PETA about this in the past, they don't even support the idea of blind people having a seeing eye dog. This is how insane they are when it comes to animal husbandry. You know, we're past the halfway mark. I understand you gentlemen have to go, but before you sign off, we'll start with you, Mario. Where can our viewers follow your marvelous content?
People can just Google Mario Further North on Google, and you can find me on X, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.
Thank you so much for your time, Mario. And David, where can our viewers find your content?
Well, I'm quite willing to stay for the whole hour if you want me. But
in that case, I'm not going to show you the door. You can stay. I know Mario has to take care of something. So I'll tell you what, folks, why don't we throw to an ad break and we'll switch gears and we'll talk about another humongous story in British Columbia. That would be the land grab. So we'll see you on the other side.
Appreciate it.
Make great
See you guys.
distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same
We
rhetoric.
will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
You like the hat? Me too. Same strong message about making Canada great again, but in a really cool color, black and gold. There's other colors available, and it's an all-Canadian site. So if you want to signal your tribe or trigger a Liberal, go to mcgahats.ca today.
Big news, Rebel News now has premium memberships on X, Locals, and right here on YouTube. For just $4.99 a month on YouTube, you'll get loyalty badges, custom emojis, and access to members-only chats during our live streams. At $8.99 a month, you'll also unlock Rebel News Plus shows and our documentaries. But here's the catch. YouTube could cancel that premium tier at any time. That's why the best way to support us is at rebelnewsplus.com. It's just $8 a month, cheaper if you go annual, and you'll get exclusive extras like an ad-free site, comments access, and even the chance to submit op-eds. Wherever you join us, thanks for keeping our independent journalism alive and strong.
All right, before we get into more of the madness in British Columbia, we have an ad for, this is a good one. I know a lot of people are going to be interested in this. The question starts with, what if those who were once called conspiracy theorists turned out to be right again? Okay. A new study by Korean doctors claimed that COVID vaccines raise the risk of 6 cancers, including lung, breast, and prostate. Researchers analyzed health records from more than 8.4 million adults between 2021 and 2023, and their findings were published in Biomarker Research, a respected scientific journal. Critics dismiss it, but the data raises concern that spike protein exposure may be tied to long-term health risks. Dr. Peter McCullough has been aware of this since 2020, which is why he collaborated with the wellness company to create the Ultimate Spike Detox, designed to help your body clear spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support health. With natural ingredients like nattokinase, I think is how you say that, dandelion root, and bromelain. It is your daily proactive defense from a mandate virus. Don't wait until symptoms strike or something unexpected happens. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. McCullough, one of the top doctors who risked it all. Head to twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL, cap locks, to get 10% off, plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL to get 10% off and get back to feeling better post-COVID. Oh, also a good reminder to let you guys know if you want to be part of the show, super chat. There's my mom's cat. That's my mom's cat. It's actually not my cat. My cat's better behaved. Yeah, super chat or Rumble Rats on Rumble if you want to be a part of the second half of the show here.
Fantastic, Drea. And well, as we established in the first half of the show, we don't have private property rights in Canada. It's not constitutionally enshrined. Ostriches are one thing. Your private property, that's another thing. And there are disturbing stories, plural, coming out of BC. Why don't we first throw to a clip from a Drea Humphrey report about the now Kamloops land grab. Check it out.
Thanks for coming out, everyone. It's been a bit of a hectic morning with what's been going on, and unfortunately have some bad news, which is that the venue here has now said that we need to leave. So, you know, this is actually the second venue today. We were over at the Thompson Hotel and Conference Center earlier today at about 10 a.m. setting up, kind of like this, the way we were getting set up. And they apparently received a call from general manager at Coast Hotels to the manager at the Thompson Hotel and Conference Center. And the announcement was, and then after that conversation with the Thompson Hotel and Conference Center, they told us that we needed to leave. So we secured this venue, and now apparently out of the hands of the local manager here, who actually seems quite receptive to hosting us here today, their corporate headquarters apparently has told him that it's out of his hands and that we need to leave. So
what if we don't leave?
they would call the RCMP, and the front desk manager, the lady at the front desk, she's actually been tremendously helpful as well. I think they kind of sympathize with what's going on here. Now there's a cul-de-sac right outside here. We have a megaphone, so we will continue the event just outside here on the public street in the cul-de-sac, so it is safe for everyone. There's a little hill there. You can kind of stand on the hill, so you're off the street. And Dallas will deliver a speech there, and yeah, so I would just ask that we kind of head out that way. There's a couple of us that can lead the way there, and we'll hold these up outside. We'll take any questions, and thank you so much for coming today.
Okay, sorry about this, everyone.
Yeah, all right.
Let's be on target.
Wow, you know what? That's fascinating. That wasn't the story I thought we were going to hear about.
Well,
the
it's
Kamloops.
related.
Well, no, it's a sidebar, but it's an equally important sidebar. And David, let me start with you. This is an ongoing, disturbing trend. We have cowardly, woke corporatists setting the agenda. We have censorious thugs saying, yeah, well, free speech is all fine, but it might offend somebody, so move on. This is, I think, for the three of us as journalists, we're all about free speech. This is despicable. They paid for the venue, and then some corporatists with Coast Hotels said, nope, this is too third rail to talk about. This might affect us negatively somehow. What's your take?
Well, until some local native band takes over the hotel land, maybe they'll start listening and acknowledging free speech. But of course, we have 4 surveillance and censorship bills before Parliament, or 3 right now, 1 forthcoming. But I sat down recently with Dallas Brody, the interim leader of the OneBC party. I was completely in sync with her, because I have been saying this for 20 years, that native self-government and Aboriginal title is going to mean the end, the termination of private property in Canada. You will not own your home. You will not own your backyard. It can be taken over at the whim of any First Nations band that wants to claim it, because this has nothing to do with Aboriginal treaty rights. This is a whole new phenomena, and it's dangerous. And why are we here? Well, one of the reasons is that idiots at municipal governments, federal governments, provincial governments, and even the local Rotary Club insist upon land acknowledgements before the meeting begins. So if you, and King Charles, before the speech from or during the speech from the throne, actually said that this parliament sits on the unceded land of this local Indian band. And I thought, how demented is that? You're telling me that the Parliament of Canada doesn't sit on land owned by Canada. It's owned by some native band because it's unceded. You talk like that in those crazy terms for decades, and we have in Canada. Sooner or later, somebody's going to take you up on it and say, oh, they're unceded. We own it all. So get off our land.
You know what,
That's
David?
the end product.
I think that's a great point. And Drea, to David's point, I mean, I was at the Remembrance Day ceremony in my city of Richmond Hill on November 11th. And of course, our lame mayor, David West, led the Remembrance Day ceremony with some prolonged land acknowledgement. Now, there's a time and place for everything, because I wanted to boo him down. A Remembrance Day ceremony, that's not the time and place for such shenanigans. But this is crazy. You're basically providing, like an actionable point for these native bands by saying, hey, we're just occupiers. We don't actually own this. What is your take?
Well, I think one of the worst examples was when the RCMP, when those two kids, those poor kids were missing in Nova Scotia, and everybody's going, are they alive? Did they get found? What's happening? And they make everybody wait for a minute and a half of a 3-minute press conference or whatever to listen to a land acknowledgement. But you're right, I have been a strong proponent against land acknowledgements. I don't like anything related to critical race theory, anything that shames people based on their race, either way, right? So you're right, now we're seeing this in light of the Cowichan versus Canada decision. People are finally waking up. I actually did not know that the city of Richmond had actually in 2021, after bands that were claiming Richmond's land were pressuring the city to do land acknowledgements. Oh, you big racist, why aren't you saying them? The mayor, who I interviewed, said, we can't say them because of the legal matter now everybody knows about, the Aboriginal Title one, which, of course, in case you didn't know, private property owners, some of them in Richmond, found out after that Aboriginal title has been granted over their private property title from the BC Supreme Court. But in case you missed it, now Kamloops is up for grabs. Certainly probably not the last that we're going to hear about. The entire city of Kamloops is up for grabs. So of course that's private property, and Sun Peaks. I mean, this is getting crazy. We have a precedent set, and yes, it is being appealed. There's a lot of critique about whether or not the government is even trying to fight that appeal on behalf of the people for reasons I've talked about. But what you saw there, that clip that you showed, was OneBC, one of the parties in BC that has been shedding light on what they call the reconciliation industry before we knew about the Aboriginal title. And it's all, linked into that. So they were trying to have a meeting for people in Kamloops to talk to them about what Aboriginal title over their fee simple title could mean. And they couldn't even get a hotel. These hotels could also have Aboriginal title of them. And they got canceled at 3 locations, 2 that morning, 1 canceled on them, I believe, the day before. And it's just ridiculous. So the citizens who just want to know what's going on because their own government isn't telling them that their land is up for grabs, want to hear a political party with elected officials talk to them about that. And these businesses won't even let that take place because there's such a pushback against any form of truth when you go against what I call reconciliation overreach.
Outrageous and egregious, Drea. And, David, to Drea's point, I think we see 2 things happening here. One is activist judges making up this stuff as they go along, not based on law, but based on ideology. And secondly, in the big picture of reconciliation, if you want to set reconciliation back more than a century, I'll tell you how you do it. It's by threatening the private property of people who have paid off a mortgage 25, 30, 40 years and saying, we're not sure you actually own this. I can see a real hostile environment when it comes to natives and non-natives based on this issue alone, because this hurts everyone right where the pocketbook is. What are your thoughts?
Well, of course, this is going to produce a massive backlash, and justifiably so. You're talking about land that you own, you thought you owned, you've been paying taxes on it for years, and now somebody's going to take it away from you. Well, I'm sorry, I am going to fight back over that. I'm not going to accept it. And I don't have anything to reconcile about, by the way. I grew up with a lot of Indigenous people. We were all friends together. We never judged each other on the basis of the color of our skin. We really believe the maxim from Martin Luther King Jr. that we should judge people on their character, the basis of their character, not the color of their skin. I grew up believing that. I have nothing to reconcile with. And you know what? The reconciliation industry, as Dallas Brody had pointed out when I spoke to her, it's making lawyers rich. And there's a reconciliation industry that's making lawyers and the chiefs, the leadership of the Indigenous people, are always the ones walking away with the cash. And the average Indigenous person in British Columbia and across Canada is in worse condition today. Less clean drinking water, more poverty, fewer jobs, more addiction on the reserves than ever before, because the chiefs are keeping the money and the people on the reserves never see it. Yep. It's a corrupt system and we need to get rid of it.
And 'twas ever thus. And by the way, I've got a news flash for you, David. If you were to go to many school board meetings today and you were to espouse what the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King said more than half a century, that we need a colorblind society, you would be frog marched out by security, because that doesn't fly anymore. It's a new kind of politically correct apartheid that they endorse. Drea, what's going to happen ultimately? Surely the Supreme Court of Canada is going to hear this, correct?
I believe so, but the damage is already done to a certain extent. I mean, this is going to take years for us to get an answer to. We're already seeing claims from homeowners in Richmond saying, at least one on record, saying he can't get a mortgage again. We heard from a city councillor in Richmond who said that a manufacturing company that's worked for them for many years, with them, I should say, was denied financing, and that they believe that was because of this issue. And who is going to want to invest in these areas? And what is everybody thinking about their retirement? This has the ability to destabilize the entire economy of British Columbia and beyond, really, if it becomes a precedent here. All Canadians should be very concerned about this. And earlier in this show, when we talked about the ostriches, I said how a lot of our problems seem to stem down from places like the WHO. In this case, this is also accompanied by, supported by the UN's United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which British Columbia became the first jurisdiction in the entire world to take that crazy aspirational framework and adopt it into binding law. So not just say, hey, yeah, we want to consider this when we make things. They made it binding, saying we're going to make all of our laws conform to this. So you shouldn't be surprised when you get a judge ruling this way, when they think this is how British Columbia operates. Now that is called DRIPA in British Columbia. It was brought in by David Eby. It was brought in by the BC Liberals. So even John Rusted, who leads the BC Conservatives. So that's really who's fighting for you. When these poor homeowners, landowners in Richmond are going, yeah, the BC government is going to, fight this appeal. That's who's fighting it for them. The same premier who gave Haida Gwaii title didn't even wait for the courts. David Eby didn't even wait for the courts. He just gave it to Haida Gwaii. And yes, that is one of the places that does have a larger Indigenous community. But now, like half of its citizens there on those islands are governed by a First Nation band that they can't elect or reject.
And Drea, to your starting point, imagine being a homeowner right now, even if there is a subsequent ruling by the Supremes that this is unconstitutional, this cannot stand. For the here and now, I think you have real estate that is worthless. I mean, I wouldn't buy anything in British Columbia right now. I can tell you that much. It's just too risky.
Well, I know a lot of people are fearing that. They're fearing that. They're kind of holding their grounds. But I interviewed quite a few people at that event that was pushed to the street. I mean, you would think in Kamloops of all places they want to hear it, but really, of course not. And OneBC is just saying they're representing a major concern of the people here. And I did interview some of those people about their concerns that they have now that they've learned that in 2015, Aboriginal title claim went against their land too.
Well, you know what, folks? We're rapidly running out of racetrack here. Drea, I understand you have another ad read, and I don't know if any super chats have come in that you can address, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
It's a quiet bunch today. We have a Rumble Premium ad. Again, our friends at Rumble, just, we were so restricted during COVID, punished, demonetized, so I just can't get enough of Rumble. They say, looking for smarter ways to browse and enjoy your favorite content without ads? Get the Perplexity Pro bundle with Rumble Premium for just $19.99 a month. When you sign up before December 31st, normally a $29.99 value. Sorry, guys. With Rumble Premium, you'll get an ad-free viewing experience across all your devices and access to exclusive premium content, no interruptions, just the videos and streams you love anytime, anywhere. Plus, Perplexity Pro boosts your productivity. Okay, I feel like this is a bit of a tongue twister. With unlimited research, unlimited uploads, exclusive member perks, and access to the latest and most advanced AI models for faster, smarter answers every day. Save over 30% on this powerful bundle. Head to rumble.com/premium before December 31st to sign up and unlock your premium experience. Again, that's rumble.com/premium to support our free speech platform, unlike YouTube.
Fantastic. And you said some super chats came in over the last hour, Drea.
I don't think they did. Oh, one did just now.
Better than none.
Very, very quiet bunch. Probably sitting there in shock at the state of things going on here. And it is from a big toasty, and the name is cut off. I want to guess cinnamon bun, maybe? Thanks for another fantastic Friday broadcast. Donates $10. Well, thank you very much for your support.
Well, there you go. And wow, what a show. We didn't, of course, as usual, get to half the topics on the list. But David, I'll give you the same courtesy I gave Mario. Where can our viewers follow your content, sir?
Well, you can find me every day on YouTube, Rumble, and X. That's Stand on Guard. That's my 10 o'clock show in the morning. And I continue to write for the Post Millennial, Human Events, and Blaze Media. I'm there every week, too.
Fantastic. And you do great stuff there, David. And there you have it. Another jam-packed show. Even though the ostriches are long gone, I don't think the story is. I think there's more digging to be done. And I'm sure we'll have follow-ups, even though the mainstream media is sitting this one out as per usual. So I want to thank Mario and David. And of course, my lovely co-host in BC, Drea Humphrey. I don't think I'm back on Monday, folks. I think I'm on assignment. There's something about a flag being raised at Nathan Phillips Square that's got some people concerned. I think you know what I'm talking about. So there'll be 2 other Rebel personalities here on Monday. In the meantime, have a great weekend. And as always, stay safe and stay sane.